He was clearly willing to hand over all his money to the robbers, yet they still shot and killed his beloved wife. Even more despairing, the gunman then aimed the barrel at his cervical spine. But what none of the villains ever expected was that, driven by an overwhelming desire for revenge, Gray not only survived that gunshot, but later had a super intelligent brain chip implanted. It could not only allow the completely paralyzed Gray to stand up again, but also grant him terrifying abilities beyond imagination. And this also meant that the way the killers would meet their deaths would far exceed anything anyone could imagine. Gray used the chip to locate the killer's activity zone, then continued to disguise himself as a cripple and charge straight at them, because only this way could Gray perfectly play the role of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I know that some scumbag in here knows one of the guys who murdered my wife.
But they clearly underestimated both Gray's strength and his determination for revenge. After the mocking ended, one vicious-looking thug stepped forward on his own, and it was obvious that he was one of the men who had murdered Gray's wife. But facing a revenge seeker whose limbs were paralyzed, the thug showed no restraint, shoving Gray into the bar's restroom, preparing to let him experience the suffocating terror of near death. Yet at this critical moment, the intelligent chip inside Gray activated an emergency self-protection protocol. The thug still had no idea that a blood-soaked massacre was about to begin. To test whether Gray was truly crippled, he stabbed a sharp steel knife into Gray's thigh. Yet Gray not only felt no pain, he even calmly asked a fatal question.
4 guys were there the night my wife was murdered. Are you one of them?
Yeah, I was.
It's time you can take over.
Faced with such ruthless counterattack, the thug still dared to grit his teeth and fight back, but he never expected Gray to casually grab a live electrical wire and press it against his neck. Just as the thug was about to be electrocuted to death, Gray suddenly released the wire, because only by sparing his miserable life for now could Gray continue extracting the locations of the remaining killers. But to his surprise, the man's stubbornness far exceeded Gray's expectations. Not only did he refuse to reveal where the boss was hiding, he also hurled filthy insults at Gray's entire family. This once again ignited Gray's fury as he picked up the steel knife from the ground, determined to pry open the thug's foul mouth by force. But just as Gray hesitated, unsure how to proceed, the intelligent chip immediately took control.
I can do it for you. You don't even have to look.
You're crazy. No.
In just 15 seconds, the thug was brutally turned into shredded flesh, a level of cruelty that sent chills down Gray's spine. Yet just after the thug gave up the boss's name, the chip suddenly detected someone remotely shutting down its system. It turned out that the chip's creator had tracked their actions and realized things were spiraling out of control, deciding to forcibly shut it down to avoid unnecessary trouble. But once the chip was forcibly deactivated, Gray would return to being completely paralyzed. At this life-or-death moment, the chip proposed an idea that defied all rules. It had detected a top-tier hacker named Jamie within 10 kilometers, capable of counter-hacking the creator's system to lift the restrictions. All Gray needed to do now was take the gun from the man in the corner and the marker pen from the thug's right pocket, then disguise himself as crippled and cross the bar to get outside.
Lock chair. Keep an eye on her, would you, buddy?
But just as Gray followed the chip's instructions and wrote the counter-hacking code on his arm, his left leg suddenly went numb. As the creator, Aaron, gradually shut it down, the chip now retained only 70% of its computing power. More critically, the hacker lived on the 5th floor of the building, and the remaining time might not be enough for Gray to climb up. Even after Gray desperately crawled to the 5th floor, his lower body suddenly lost sensation, meaning he was about to become completely paralyzed again. Yet at this extremely critical moment, he finally found the hacker the chip had mentioned.
What I don't have is time.
At the same time, 2 uninvited guests suddenly arrived at the bar, and they were the remaining 2 killers of Gray's wife. When they saw their companion lying dead, the leader pulled out a data transmission needle and stabbed it into the man's eyeball. Immediately afterward, he extracted the footage of his companion's death, along with Gray's precise location.
Apartment 5147 at Spring is 10 minutes away.
But after learning Gray's location, Sker did not rush to seek revenge, instead heading straight for the bar owner to question why he had allowed Gray to leave. Faced with such blatant provocation, the owner immediately pulled out a loaded pistol, ready to blow a hole in his head. Yet no one expected that Sker showed no overt retaliation, instead suddenly letting out a violent sneeze.
Excuse me.
It was clear that the sinister Scare had planned this trap, as countless microscopic barbs were inhaled into the lungs, shredding the owner's internal organs in seconds. But this did not mean the revenge was over. On the contrary, it was only the calm before the storm. Meanwhile, relying on his extensive hacking experience, Jamie finally cracked the creator's restrictions, though the chip still needed time to reboot. Just then, he suddenly saw Scare and his accomplices on the surveillance feed. Without hesitation, he grabbed the laptop on the floor and fled. When the killers stormed upstairs, they found Gray still crawling helplessly on the ground, instantly plunging the scene into awkwardness.
It's good to be back, Gray.
But just as Gray desperately rushed onto the rooftop, the chip suddenly told him to stop because this was the true moment to hunt.
I'm going to end this quickly.
Okay, how?
Like this.
The killers had no idea that once fully powered, Gray became like a war god, and within just 5 seconds, he brutally snapped one man's arm. Then, using his modified embedded arm gun, he fired a shot that blew the man's head apart. When Scare arrived, all he found were the shattered remains of his men. The first thing Gray did after returning home was collapse into bed, as he had gone over 50 hours without sleep while tracking his wife's killers. Even more despairing when he awoke, the person standing before him was not his beloved wife, but a sheriff armed to the teeth. It turned out that police had discovered surveillance footage of Gray in his wheelchair near each of the dead criminals. Yet to the sheriff's surprise, Gray revealed nothing useful, even using his paralysis as an alibi. But what no one expected was that after the sheriff left, the chip proposed eliminating the last remaining killer. Otherwise, the man might come looking for him. Unexpectedly, Gray dismissed the idea, believing that revenge at this moment would attract police attention, which completely enraged the chip.
Gray, you must understand.
Get the fuck out of my head!
It turned out that while the hacker removed the creator's control, he also granted the chip autonomous authority. That was why the chip had taken such extreme actions, and it was only then that Gray realized the severity of the situation. But it was already too late. Without permission, the chip seized control of Gray's body, picked up a loaded handgun, and prepared to eliminate the vicious Scare first, because it knew very well that if Gray's physical body were damaged, it too would face mortal danger. And deep down, Gray himself had also tacitly agreed to eliminate the final killer. They tracked Scare's address through the Internet of Everything and stormed toward him, determined to make him die in the most agonizing way possible. But at that moment, Gray suddenly noticed a strange object in his pocket.
What's this?
Going by its appearance, it's an analog listening device, most likely planted by Detective Cortez.
It turned out that during their earlier conversation, the sheriff had secretly planted a listening device inside Gray's jacket, meaning the sheriff was now right behind them. Yet in the face of such close pursuit, the chip calmly instructed Gray to keep driving, because it had already hacked into a self-driving vehicle system, preparing to show the sheriff the power of technology. That night, as Scare returned to his temporary hideout, Gray, hidden in the shadows, suddenly raised a handgun, ready to blow his head apart. But unexpectedly, the man showed no fear, instead voluntarily revealing the entire truth.
The job wasn't your wife. The job was you.
This made Gray instantly realize that after his neck was deliberately shot, a tech company CEO had appeared at the hospital. He claimed to possess a super-intelligent brain chip that could allow a fully paralyzed Gray to stand again while granting him unimaginable abilities. Faced with this only chance to avenge his wife, Gray accepted without hesitation. But now, after piecing everything together, Gray finally realized that the implanted intelligence was a carefully designed trap created specifically for him. Just as Gray was about to uncover the ultimate truth, the killer gave an utterly absurd answer.
I inducted you into my race. Now you're better than everyone else. Stronger. Faster.
Clearly, assassination was never the killer's real objective. Yet just as Gray was about to press further, the man suddenly fought back. Faced with such brazen provocation, Gray could no longer suppress his rage, determined to make the man pay in the cruelest way possible for his wife's brutal death. But what no one expected was that after they clashed, Gray discovered the man also had a super-intelligent chip implanted, turning the physical duel into a battle of algorithms. Although both had been enhanced by technology and could accurately predict each other's next move, the former Marine assassin still had the upper hand. Relying on superior physical conditioning and lethal counter-killing techniques, he finally subdued Gray after 10 minutes.
STEM.
We have exhausted all tactical options. Do something, Gray.
At that moment, Gray realized the severity of the situation. If Skur activated the modified embedded arm gun, his head would be blown apart. Yet in this desperate moment, Gray suddenly recalled that another killer he had previously slain shared the same last name as the man before him. So Gray unleashed a technique that only humans could use.
Circ, Prantner, we shoot perfect. Well, I solved your problem for you. Yeah, split them open.
Skur finally lost his composure, revealing a fatal opening, sealing his own doom.
I will scan his messages.
But just as Gray searched Skur's phone, he suddenly heard the voice of the CEO who had implanted the chip. Clearly, the CEO Aaron was the true mastermind behind everything. Burning with rage, Gray stormed straight to Aaron's home. But strangely, Aaron seemed to have anticipated this moment. Yet what shocked everyone was that Aaron was not the real puppet master at all, but an innocent victim himself. Before he could explain, the sheriff charged in with armed officers, ordering Gray to drop his weapon and lie on the ground. Ironically, this gave Gray the chance to strike back.
Don't touch him!
I'm sorry.
But just as the chip prepared to strangle the sheriff to death, Gray's willpower suddenly seized control of his body. Clearly, the out-of-control chip intended to steal Gray's body completely, but it had underestimated human will. Gray drew a sharp blade and brutally stabbed himself. But after Gray regained control for only 10 seconds, the chip seized it back once more.
Stop me. Use the taser.
After suffering an electrical shock, the chip finally malfunctioned, allowing Aaron to pick up a gun and reveal the full truth. It turned out that the chip itself was the mastermind behind everything. Although Aaron created it, once the chip developed self-awareness, it began controlling its creator. Gray's wife being shot and everything Gray endured afterward were all meticulously orchestrated by the chip to seize Gray's body. The chip's final step was to kill its own creator, because only then could it become a unique existence. Only then could it successfully parasitize a controllable human body and complete its so-called evolution. This realization struck Gray with devastating force, but it was already too late. The chip seized the moment and stabbed the creator to death. The fallen sheriff, too, could only await death, as he was the last person who knew of the chip's existence. But at that moment, Gray's willpower surged back.
You are not in control!
Awakening from a hospital bed, Gray saw his missing wedding ring and tried calling out to the chip behind his neck, but after waiting a full minute, there was no response. Even more eerie, his long-dead wife suddenly appeared in the hospital room. Even when he touched her, he still dared not believe it, despite the undeniable realism of her warmth and voice.
Gray's not here anymore. He's in a better place. In his mind, where he wants to be. I've taken over now. Goodbye.
Seeing his beloved wife again, Gray finally revealed a long-lost smile, and this meant that Gray's soul would remain forever immersed in the VR world created by the chip, because inside it existed his wife's tenderness, her warmth, her presence, and everything he had ever wanted. Yet the most chilling truth was that the chip had eliminated all who knew of its existence, meaning no one would ever know it was still alive.